This isn't the park board minutes, it's just your.
Yeah, because last time we were
Down in water.
In that northwest. Yeah, it is. And yeah, I have to, I walked by that some yesterday.
The base is not $103.48. How they can.
Well, you got to take it. Oh, I've got a second.
Sure.
Well, yes. Oh, you want to go on the tour? I saw those things. I don't like to take care of this.
Probably right.
You get your own car and go for the ride.
That's why.
You're welcome.
Started out in 1964, nothing, and I still got both of them.
What, nothing?
Call the meeting to order. If you would, please rise for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I keep wanting to say amen.
You can go ahead and say that afterwards, Mrs. Tudor. That would be fine. If you would, from my left, let's do roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm Rick Chandler. I am the councilman representing District 3, serving as this year's president of the City Council.
Nick and Green, District 4.
Rick Rippey, Councilman at Large.
Ken Haven, District 2.
Sophie Hubbard, Council District 1.
Tom Dozel, Mayor.
Tamara Clark for treasurer.
If you would, you've got a copy of the minutes in front of you.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the February 24th, 2020 Common Council meeting minutes without change.
Second. Properly moved by Rick, seconded by Nate. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Is there any recommendations for amendment to our agenda this evening? Seeing none, we will proceed. Board of Works and Safety. If you could give us a brief report on that. Rick, Nate?
Yeah, I'll do this. Board of Works met today at noon. Under old business, we were able to come to what we hope is an amicable resolution regarding code complaint that's been going on for some odd months on Sweetland Avenue and an RV. We gave them a 2-week extension. We think that'll kind of close that issue. We heard from the cemetery, park board, cemetery, nothing really new, park board. Ms. Tomlinson's working on getting some more quotes for security cameras at the park. Hopefully starting demo and remodel on the dugout for the big roof field. Planning department, we talked about open issues, coding, under code enforcement, and kind of self-initiated, I think, a few other code complaints, including one on North Main Street and a couple of signs out of the Carter Mall. Heard from Mike Terry about an update on trash costs, recycle costs, and tonight the city council will be considering a change to some of the fees that have to do with curb cut applications, and we approved on contingency of approval from this council a new driveway cut application. He's restructured the fee. He is right that in the past, the fee to get a curb cut is not very economically conducive. So hopefully the council will consider the proposal in front of you tonight and approve it. I can answer questions when we get to that. And then that pretty much concluded the meeting. Lasted about an hour.
Thank you. As it relates to Park Advisory Board trails, the grant application was submitted last Friday, I believe that. I'm going to have a scanned copy to get out to all the members here. Anybody else that wants a copy of it? Brings us to Utility Board.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Utility Board met on March 2nd, 2020, where claims were paid. Some of the action taking place for that meeting was a proposal was reviewed with a company called M12 Operating Systems, which is a company that evaluates water and wastewater plants in Indiana, Illinois, and Missouri. They perform on-site visitations to each plant and present an evaluation as to the operation with recommendations of any corrective actions. It's kind of a third party objectively looking at your operation, looking at your policies, procedures, things of that nature, and it is something that is done at no cost. So the consensus was for the board to go ahead and authorize Rex to continue with that project. He had also presented plans, meaning Rex Boyer, regarding the recently received KJG architecture concerning the new collection department building. The current plan is to let the project be out for bid around March 6th, hold open bidding March 23rd, and a final approval by the board on April 6th. One thing that was brought up again was concerning the possibility of working to assist the internet speeds in the county. He had requested that Keegan Schmicker attend the meeting and update the board on the status to this. This is something that was discussed previously in the fall, and basically looking at trying to re-engage all the players and see if there might be some wheels to that. And after it was discussed, the consensus was for the board to go ahead and again see what measures might be taken to help assist with that issue. The fourth item I have on here probably isn't very current because additional actions have taken place, and that's concerning the issue out at the Ross Trailer Park. So I didn't know if there was any information, perhaps from the Board of Works concerning that, or I know that John is here from the park also to discuss a couple things as well.
It did come up briefly at the Board of Works meeting. Steve Midwick had extended them a 90-day verbal extension for 90 days. He's received no communication, so he's going to revoke that temporary extension on removing the abandoned trailers, and we'll probably have another order to appear, another public hearing, something. And then in the minutes, it says that there's a disconnect, 60-day disconnect notice. Is it because of a unpaid utility bill?
That is exactly my understanding, is that they are in the rears, and correct me, Dick, if I'm wrong in this, when the water bill department about 10 grand, is that right? So it's related to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Nate. John, did you want to add anything? Let me get the microphone on for you. There you go, sir.
I don't know for sure what the plumbers got done. We got there this past Thursday. They were in all day Friday, so he wasn't there. He was there Saturday, and he's there again today. I think he's left now. But the only thing, he has got some meter pits in. So it's a matter of now getting to the trailers to hook them up, but I don't think he can legally do that because they don't have the 2 consecutive water tests. One was supposed to be done within 24 hours. One was done 21 day, and then the other one was done 8 days later. I talked to him a while ago because what he's doing is not going to work. Because he's just running the lines underneath the trailers and then running them on top of the ground back to where they hooked into the trailer. They're going to lay under the creek. So according to what Jeff Bird and Rex Boyer has told me, there's no actual code to put in a water line. You know, I could have put my own in if I wanted to, but what he's doing is everybody's going to end up, when the weather gets cold next winter, with frozen water line, most likely. So outside of the utility board had voted to give 60 days. But if the water's not fixed and the bills aren't set up to start paying to turn the water off. So 2 weeks of that's passed. So they're really, other than putting in the meter pits, they're not as close as it was a month ago, actually. So,
John, have either you or Dick, have either of you heard of anything else from Mr. Ross's relatives? I knew he had a couple relatives out there about 8-10 days ago, and they talked like they might be willing to get involved to help resolve the issue.
the only thing I know with them, I had Alex Cook, who was one of them, and I told him that he needed to get with the utility department, the Board of Works, Board of Health, and let them know what Andrew's dad, but I talked to, Judy after the meeting this afternoon, and he's made no contact with any of them, so. The way they talked, they had good plans, but now, when I did talk to Alex, he said that the contract for the water was paid in full. That was a stupid move. I wouldn't pay until it was done.
So you're saying the contractor's been paid to complete the work and he hasn't completed it yet?
I don't know that we can say that for a fact.
Well, that's what Alex told me,
Okay,
so.
you note that as such. Thank you.
Alex, who
Alex Cook,
Cook told you that, and Alex Cook is,
he was Max Cook's son, Phyllis Cook.
I mean, how are they related to the trailer park situation?
Yeah, Phyllis was Jim's sister, who was married to Max Cook. Also, Alex told me that he had a contractor lined up to get rid of the old trailers, but he can't get in there to do it while he's got the driveway and the water lines all torn up. He has to wait till that's done, because he's got to go in the trailer park.
I'm still confused with how the Cook family, they're related to the Ross family?
Phyllis Cook, which was Max's wife, was Joe Ross's sister.
Okay.
Yeah, they're related.
I don't know. I mean, Frank,
Some business associates as well. So I would.
the 30,000 foot view of the problem is there's 10,000 in unpaid utility, there's unpaid taxes, and I gotta believe the health board's up to almost 40 grand. No sane person who's a businessman to say, I'll buy that trailer park with 60 grand in debt and encumbrances.
That's what I'm trying to tell them. You know, I just told my wife again, so she maybe this afternoon, if they back up and put fines on from the utility, from the Board of Works.
Health Department.
Yeah.
The fines are actually imposed by the Health Department.
Yeah, so they're $1,000 a day.
Yeah.
And,
So just as a matter of clarification for me personally, there is nothing at this point with that trailer park that this board
No.
has
The only
any
update you notice,
control or
The
say
Board of
or
Works
anything to
is
do
yet
with,
to
right?
levy any fines.
That's what I thought. It's completely out of our hands. No, I mean, we have no, there's nothing we can do.
well, I know, you know, I'm trying to tell them, the city has been over backwards. All the boards have been over backwards. And he just won't comply. He thinks that I'm in Germany, can't do nothing to me, you know. Yeah, you probably can't extradite him back, but he don't, as far as I'm concerned, he don't want to come back to Tipton. But no, there's gonna be the tax fine, with the fine that they back him up before that 90-day extension started. He's got over $250,000 in fines and utility bills, taxes, and everything else. And he just played right in the city's hands, you know, they want the
We
problem.
just want them to get it done. And planning departments reached out, asked for correspondence. I believe the next week, of course, is asked for his appearance. Yeah, and you heard that today.
I told Rick long ago, it'll probably be his mother, Rebecca was here, and after she talks, I will, on the finger at it, tell her I told you so.
John, I appreciate you keeping this board up to date and your diligence.
Thank all of you for working with us like you have. You tell me department too, Dick.
We could do more.
That's the last item I had listed on my utility board report, Mr.
You
Chairman.
could do.
That was my final item, Mr. Mayor, on the utility board report.
Right. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Under new business,
Never mind.
Could we do? Oh, we skipped.
Cemetery board.
Because we went
Well,
to
yeah.
utility right after Board of Works.
got it. And we made the comments about the cemetery board meeting coming through the Board of Works. But Sophie, you're on the cemetery board, right?
No, I'm on the cemetery board.
Rick?
They did not meet in February.
Gotcha.
The park advisory board. Ms. Huff is on that.
I am. Mr. Parker's here if he wants to speak.
but I did take meetings for the park committee. I thought the meeting was absolutely a fantastic meeting. There was a number of students in attendance. In fact, the room was full. The room was full with young people. The swimming pool manager has been contracted. They've accepted an individual, Stephen, but I didn't catch his last name.
Thompson.
Okay. And then they talked, Mike Terry spoke about the shelving project going to be shifted away. Right now, they're looking for an alternative. Tipton baseball contract, they're going with somebody by the name of IMAVAX, MVAX, but Young Guns will not be using the baseball area. Skateboard project,
Did they state why Young Guns? Is Young Guns still in existence?
it's a traveling team.
I don't think they are.
Is that why they're, I mean, that's why they're
It's
not?
a new parent that's taken over and new organization.
I took it that there wasn't enough for that. Skateboard presentation was given by a young man named Brody Heinzman. He did an excellent job. He gave out handouts, he had photos, he spoke about what he liked in other parts that he had been to for skateboarding. He gave an average cost of construction at $45 a square foot. The low end's 25, the high end's 60, but the average is 45. He says most of them are constructed at 3,000 square feet with a cost of $135,000. He asked where he'd like to see this be taking place, and he said at Tipton Park, but he was very reasonable in saying that, of course, there's not been an evaluation out there done as far as drainage and capacity, so that was just something he was thinking of. Mike Terry suggested that the park that we're considering over on Wilson Street, maybe that might be another option. So that's going to be, have more conversation on that. When he was asked what size would he like to see, he said he would love to see 40 by 60 feet, which was what he was seeing on average of the other parks that he's gone to. But his presentation was well presented, well spoken, and he just did a really good job. There's a few young men I've seen here that were there for that also. Then the park manager gave her report, Diana Tomlinson, and she talked about concessions, wanting to sell at the concerts, but she had spoke to the health department and they said that the concessions would have to speak to them because it could be a food safety issue. Security pros gave her estimates for cameras. They're going to have a kickball tournament in April at the Commons. Paperwork for the permit to demolish and rebuild the dugouts was requested, but an inspection was needed first by item to make sure there's no hazardous issues before requesting the permits. And let's see, the gentleman by the name of Vincent Blast, she mentioned he's an employee. He'd like to see a veterans park possibly at the Commons. And also the suggestion again was about Wilson Street location, what maybe we could be doing over there with that. Golf Advisory Committee was given by Jay Crawford. And he spoke about the fence removal, new netting, and the last 2 years of business has declined, but the rate will not change for usage. And Mr. Purvis, again, like I said earlier, he submitted the grant for the RTP. It was a really good meeting. There was a lot of interaction.
On the skateboard presentation, was the young man given any instructions on what to do next?
Yes.
Okay.
We're meeting with the group, the Park Advisory Board, and the skateboard group is meeting this Thursday here at City Hall, down in the meeting room down the hall. We've got a lot of questions, you know. I don't think they've thought anything about funding yet, so we'll just sit down and talk to them, and rather than just, you know, recommend to the city council that, you know, this group wants a skateboard park, we're gonna put them through the ropes there and come up with some good answers there. So, this Thursday at 6, like it is.
I think they're from very prepared. They did a great job.
They did ask to be on the agenda for the next council meeting, so should I leave them on the agenda or should I wait to hear from after Thursday's meeting?
I'd recommend just keeping the item on the agenda for our next meeting, and then we'll see from that meeting on Thursday if they think they'll be prepared for it by then.
Okay.
I think that's a great effort moving forward. Maybe the youth council can get involved with that as well, trying to integrate things there with the school.
Okay.
That'd be a great
You
idea.
hear that?
Thank you very much for that report. New business items. Any new business items to come before the council? Old business items. I guess one we're gonna address, we had actually accepted an agreement, real estate donation agreement between Mr. Weatherford and myself as far as his desire to provide that land out there with the development as a park area. So we have entered into that agreement, and there's an item later on in the agenda that also addresses that, then consideration of acceptance of that. Other old items, old business, things we're currently working on,
I can give an animal shelter update if you'd like to, Mr. Mayor.
if you would be so kind.
Absolutely. We've got a lot of things going on right now in regards to the animal shelter and lots of local businesses that have stepped up to the plate and really delivered for us. First thing I want to do is hot off the presses. I do have a report concerning the fund out at the foundation. That fund has been open for approximately 3 weeks. We've received 12 gifts to the tune of $1,506.50, which I think is an outstanding start. I would encourage everyone, that campaign runs through June 1st, to please continue donating, because this is an expensive endeavor that's going to have a lot of moving parts, and we certainly could use all the operating capital that we can possibly get our hands on for that. I will remind everyone that those donations made at the Tipton Foundation are tax deductible. Just be sure when you make your donation that you signify that it is for the city animal shelter, so that those funds go to the right place. We have a few other things that we've had come up from local businesses. We've got a bowling benefit that's going to take place on April the 9th at Suburban Lanes from 6 until 8 p.m. Half of the proceeds from that open bowling time is going to be donated directly to the animal shelter. So we thank Mr. Bob Kroll for that. The good folks at Blooms and Blessings have brought in a line of greeting cards that are animal related. All proceeds from the sales of those cards will go directly to the animal shelter. So we certainly thank everyone out there. Tipton Ace Hardware has actually donated a big candy machine, and it's one of the nice ones where you can watch the quarters roll all the way across, and then it dispenses your candy or gum or whatever you've selected to get. Not only has the machine itself been donated, and my understanding is that's about an $800 machine, but all proceeds from the sale of the candy and gum items in that are going to be directly going to benefit the animal shelter. And that machine will probably be on the road. It's not going to be at Ace Hardware forever, so we will update you as that machine goes to some different locations, and we're hopeful of that. We've got a couple other things in the works. One thing I'll kind of tip my hand a little bit on right now is we are working to put together a comedy show. It'll be a PG-13 type deal. It'll be something that you can take the family to and enjoy, with all proceeds from the comedy show directly going to benefit the animal shelter. Good news, not only am I not a headliner on that show, but I don't appear anywhere on the card. These are actual comedians that make a living making people laugh. So, and we've got some folks that I would consider pretty heavy hitters, and once that is put to bed and sewn away where we can make a formal announcement, time, place, and participants, we will certainly do that. But we would just encourage everyone to continue to stay dialed in, donate in any way you can, take a part in any fundraiser that we have any way you can, and together we're going to continue working to get this done. So I just want to publicly thank those businesses and each and every individual that supported the effort, because you really started to make this worthwhile. I really appreciate it.
Rick, can you share where all that money, who do you have where's all the money going? Who's handling it?
The foundation right now is handling all the donations that's going on as far as individuals who are cutting checks and that sort of thing. The other items, what's going to happen is we're going to be getting checks, I believe, on a monthly basis from those particular vendors or from folks doing the fundraisers, with that money again being funneled to the foundation through June 1st, where the accounts get
So
resettled.
all the money that you're raising is going through the foundation, from the bowling tournament, from the cards?
Yes, that's the pass-through account that we have established right now for that. And then on June 1st, probably not on June 1st, but after the donation drive wraps up on June 1, the foundation will cut a check directly to the city that we will be able to use for those animal shelter proceeds in order to do some work in regards to getting ready for the shelter. There will eventually be a 501c3 that will be established that will work with the city and assist with fundraising and actually coming up with money to help assist in the day-to-day operations and needs of the shelter. Right now, and I'm glad you brought that up, Ken, because it's kind of reminding me of this, we are in need of a treasurer. As I look out and I try to find some officers for that here in the city of Tipton, I've got some folks that have told me, count me in, I'm on board. I can't find a treasurer to save my life here in the city of Tipton for that. So if you're residing in the city and you've got the skill set that you would make a good treasurer and you're passionate about the cause, please reach out to me. We would like to get this salted away so that we can get our 501c3 founded and begin working to raise funds as well.
I have a comment. Before we go and move money to the city, we need to make sure that we can do that. Because
I was just going to ask, where was the discussion on moving money to the city for the animal shelter? I'm just curious.
Those details haven't been all worked
Okay.
out as far as that goes, and this would be a good time to have that discussion. You know, I think we as elected officials have taken a lot of different questions on things. I think the consensus is pretty solid that we need to be providing animal services in the community. What structure that takes on and where those funds go as far as an investment are details that have yet to be nailed down. And those, before anything would be final approval or decisions would be made, would have to come to this board as far as what structure it has. Rick and I have had some back and forth as far as discussion. Do you have a not-for-profit that's the operating entity on that, and the city actually holds the formal assets as far as the facility? Just what does that look like? Those are open for input. And
I would
please.
prefer that the city doesn't take those funds and that a not-for-profit, because I don't think the government should be in the business of running all that on its own. We could provide the assets, we could provide, support to John Allen, whatever he would need in wrangling up animals. But I'm not so sure I feel comfortable with the city actually operating the animal shelter itself. I think that's best suited for the private industry, or not-for-profit that we could support. That money could go to the foundation, whatever, but I don't think I would necessarily support the government running that on its own. Then the flip side of that is unfortunately, we've seen not-for-profits abuse the public trust, and we'd have to keep a close eye on anything we support that's a not-for-profit.
And I think there's kind of a point and counterpoint to that, where you can say this would be the reasons to have the city do this, or these would be the reasons to have the 501c3 charity do this with the support of the city. And that's certainly something that will need to be discussed and hammered out within this chamber so that everyone is on the same page. But in my opinion only, the bottom line is, as the mayor had reiterated, that the public has come out overwhelmingly in support of this project. It is a service that is desperately needed. And at this time, all we're doing is capturing donations from the public and having a pass through a fund there at the foundation. Nothing more, nothing less.
Tim, it was your comment that legally you're not sure the city can accept private donation.
Well, we can, but I mean, on certain things, like we've had donations for trees out of the cemetery to be planted and stuff like that.
Usually in kind, they're not money, right?
Well, no, they can make, or if a donation for the parks department or stuff like that, but we have like a park improvement fund
Right.
to accept that donation.
Okay.
But I think there's a lot of discussion that needs to be had before we go and transfer money.
Sure. And
I mean, there's a lot of discussion. I mean, because we need to, who's gonna be the owner of it? Who's gonna pay the bills? Who's gonna do this? Who's gonna do that? Who's going to, okay, once the money's out, where's gonna money come from? The city's gonna get stuck with it. Them kind of things. I think we need to have a lot of discussion before we go and move money, and then we have the discussion.
Sure, absolutely. And we do have some, almost 3 months to have those discussions, but I do think it's a
But 3
valid
months
point to
was
bring up now. I know. I think it's a very valid point to bring up now because we want to make sure that the i's are dotted and t's are crossed and this is handled the right way, most certainly.
Well, I'll go ahead and make my comment. I agree that we need to do something. I am not in favor of it becoming a city operation. To me, that's adding work to people that are already taxed on their time, and I just don't think that's something that we should be doing. You know, if a nonprofit wants to run it, that's fine. I think the city can support it, and we can help them in any way, shape, or form. I'm just not sure the city wants to start the practice of allowing nonprofits to run through the city government. That just doesn't seem to, I don't know, that just doesn't seem to be quite right to me.
I would compare it kind of to the community center, you know. And the community center is a physical asset of the city. And that it has a not-for-profit that actually manages that, Friends of the Community Center that was established. And then they work with the Boys and Girls Club and the other businesses that are in there. So we have the physical location. We there again don't do the operation, and I get that they've got significantly different missions, but that's been kind of my vision or impression of what an arrangement would look like.
And I think what it's, go ahead, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And I understand that, and I do understand the comparison that you made. If that was all done differently at the beginning, though, I believe that would have been handled differently. And I'm not sure, how do I say this, because I don't want this. So I'm
Off the record?
No, I'll talk to you privately. I'll talk to you privately later about that.
The thing I think that you have to remember when you look at this is the history of animal control within the city of Tipton. We've had several attempts at it, solely going the non-for-profit route. For one reason or another, they have not come to fruition and it has not worked out. The citizens have begged almost to the point of demanding this service be provided. To me, it would be akin, if we weren't involved in this, to saying we're going to let the citizens pick up the garbage. We're going to let the citizens patrol the streets. This is a municipal service that I think our citizens deserve. They're obviously of the opinion they should contribute to this because they have supported it. And that was the whole reason behind looking at a 501c3 to try to work with the city to help fund it, was strictly from a standpoint of trying to take some of the burden off of the taxpayer when doing this. Because you can utilize some agreements with some non-for-profit and assistance and that sort of thing, and taking advantage of grants and kind of going that kind of route. Because in all reality, you know, I wouldn't have a problem if it was something that was 100% ran and operated by the city, because I look at it as a service, just like garbage, police, and other services that we provide to our citizens. That being said, I want to be smart about it, and if there's grants available that working with a 501c3 could help us capture, that I think would be the big reason of going that route. Not so much, in my opinion, saying the city should be hands off with this. We're going to let a charity try to do this when that model has gone into effect 5 or 6 times in the last 40 years and nothing's come of it. So that's my 2 cents worth anymore.
Nate?
Yeah, okay. I mean, I agree to some extent, we can sit and talk about the CW Mountain Center and the problems there and the positives and the negatives. I think that if it is a service, then we have to tax for it. I'm not necessarily not in favor of another tax for that. What I am in favor of is the government owes its citizens at a basic level some sort of animal control, not an animal shelter, animal control. That includes someone on call all the time, not a police officer who can ignore it because the police aren't equipped to handle that. Someone on duty who can pick up animals, who can investigate animal cruelty crimes, and who can police, because the courts treat animals as property, can police that issue. And then I think we also, the citizens, where do we take that property after it's been captured? After that, I think that's where it'd be a good partnership with a 501c3, who operates once the animal is at the shelter. And I think the past operations have failed because citizens have gotten together and gotten really no financial support or operational support, like I just described, from the city or county. Ideally, the city and county could come together and say, come on, this is a city and county issue, let's chip in 30, 40, whatever it is a piece, and then have a 501c3 run it. Because I think the city trying to run it all on its own is it's too cumbersome and bureaucratic, and the government really is not equipped, especially our size, to do this. So I like Tom's idea of the city owning the asset, and maybe the city contributes some amount of funds to be discussed to that 501c3, and then that 501c3 operates it.
And I'm certainly not opposed to that setup. I don't want to come across like that. Not opposed at all of that.
But I think the idea of in-housing all of it, it's just, I think if it is truly a service, if we're going to sit here and say it's a service, everything you mentioned we pay for. So we'd have to find a way to probably levy a tax to pay for that ongoing. And I'm just not sure we're ready for that. But I do think it deserves city financial support.
Okay. If you want an update on the youth council, Austin's here.
Got a question.
Vicky?
Ask a question, couple of questions.
Have we reached out to the county to ask if any?
I spoke again with County Commissioner, Dr. Jim Mullins, and he does understand this should be a joint effort, and he's willing to support the joint effort.
Good, okay.
In providing this service. Yep.
How does Elwood Shelter, how is it, designed as far as who owns and operates?
Are you aware of that?
Yes, the city actually owns, operates, and funds the shelter. Their municipal budget for last year was a budget of $68,000 to operate their shelter. They accepted donations in kind as well, because the $68,000 budget would not be enough for the city that size to run their shelter. And that's typically the case with all the case studies that I've looked at with the shelters that I've seen, is typically it involves either some sort of municipal operation or funding going hand in hand with donations in kind, or a 501c3. Those entities are almost always married together somehow, but they can take different forms, such as in the case of Elwood and Shelbyville City ownership and running, accepting donations on the side, to the model in Wabash, which is closer to what Nate was talking about, where the city and county actually put some money into the pool, but the 501c3 owns, operates the operation, and also asks for donations in kind to help operate it.
So in Elwood, there's a 501c3?
No.
That's why I thought you
No.
said it was completely owned.
It is completely owned and operated by the city, and they do accept donations, though, to assist with medical bills and things like that for the animal, but it is municipally owned and operated.
Okay. My other question is, do you have a goal in mind for your fundraising efforts that you're going and doing right now? Do you have an end result goal that you're working towards to pay for something in particular, or you're just taking in donations?
My end result goal is to have an opening, functioning, operating animal shelter here in the city of Tipton.
I know, but do you have a monetary goal that you're looking for?
I would like to raise as much money as we can. I mean, you can look and say, okay, let's use Elwood's number as $68,000, and that's what we need to operate that. But there are so many questions still in the air. Location, do we end up with a building that is complete or partially complete? Are we building from scratch? What kind of experts can we bring in to dedicate their times, tools, talent, and supplies to making this happen? The key to answering a lot of these questions is going to be a location. And until we have that, I don't feel like I can answer that question.
I'll talk to you later about the reason I was asking.
Absolutely.
Goal, because if you have a goal in mind, then it's easier maybe to work towards that goal, because then you have like a, one of those little bulbs, that says we're at this level.
Sure.
And then we're going to this level until we reach our goal. So I didn't know if you had a monetary figure as far as if you knew how much it was going to cost to purchase your shelter and get it up and running. At this point, if you had some sort of a ballpark figure of what you actually would need, because June will be here before we know it.
Absolutely, I agree with that. I do think procuring a location, whether it be a build from scratch location or an existing structure, will go a long way toward answering those questions.
Do you foresee that is coming near?
I do.
And finalization on that then?
I do.
Do you know what the timeline's gonna be on that?
I would like to have that wrapped up this month, and I don't see why we couldn't have that wrapped up this month, at least in principle. And that's the other thing too I want to address with the money, is what our mayor said about Dr. Mullins, from my understanding, has been exactly correct. He has asked us to stay in the loop. Please talk to us about this, what it would take to participate in this. But what's been kind of difficult is until we get the location issue settled and we can start talking hard dollars and cents, I definitely want to make sure we're engaging the county and being able to say, we foresee the cost being X. Would you like to participate? Because we would see your contribution being Y. And I don't feel like we can do that right now. I feel like we would be asking them essentially to say, hey, do you want to participate, and not be able to give them a number. And I want to make sure that my ducks are in a row before we make a formal presentation to them, because I want to make sure we get them on board to participate. I think they can be very valuable partners from a financial standpoint and from a participation standpoint. And quite frankly, the size that we have of the city and county, we have to work together on issues to get the biggest bang for our buck and to solve problems correctly and most fiscally responsible manner. And that would be my vision.
So do you have any sort of a timeline on when you think that you might have actual ballpark figures?
Absolutely. If we can settle the location question later this month, that would give us time to go through, look at any sort of improvements that can be made, speak to contractors, speak to people that have expertise that might be able to donate some of those items. Then we have a number. Then it's a matter of knowing what it takes to get our location up to snuff, looking at a location budget, probably using what Elwood does as an operating expense and paring it down a little bit because of the difference in size. Then we have a number. Then I think we can start looking at the number of animal calls had here in the city versus the county and try to figure out an equitable split in order to provide the funding.
So we're talking, you said you thought you might have an idea of when you would come up with those figures?
Yeah, if I had a location finalized this month, I would think, depending on the responsiveness of the contractors, that hopefully within 30 to 45 days, we could have contractors in there with quotes on numbers. And then we could start really formulating a budget, not only for operations, but to get the building where it needs to be to open.
Okay.
Thank you, Vicki.
Did you guys get together on those numbers that needed correction as far as how many animal service calls we've had in the community?
Yes,
Okay.
we were. I haven't got the article together yet. I was kind of waiting for the meeting tonight to kind of tie everything together. And I'd also kind of like to maybe do a small picture collage of some of the events, because I've already got a picture of the cards that are at the Blooms and Blossoms. And I was going to go get a picture of the candy machine and tie all of this together into just not necessarily through the councils, but all of the animal shelter, pull it all out together to do a little thing. Plus there were some other things I was wanting to talk to him as far as a goal is concerned, to maybe do some other things through the tribute.
And I would like to add one more thing quickly, and I know we need to move on, is the fact that talked about the need for, and I think Nate brought this up, someone being on duty at all times to deal with animals. The last 2 times we have had animals over being held temporarily at the sheriff's department and their kennel over there. I've actually been the one to deal with that. And I don't mind doing that because I want to put my money behind my mouth as far as being for this cause. One day I was lucky, I was working close to home and I could do it during my lunch hour. The other issue was last Sunday, and these were both days that John was off. One was a weekend, the other, he didn't feel well and he had the flu. And he actually came in the next day sick and probably shouldn't have, to make sure that the animals were reunited with their owners. And we were luckily able to get these 2 a week ago Sunday reunited with their owners as well. But that really just underscores the importance of having an animal service specialist. If it's not John when he's off duty, being someone else on duty trained to do that, or even perhaps a lot of communities make utilization of volunteer animal control officers that have the training, but they do this because they like it, not because they're expecting to pay. My efforts so far with the city officers when John's been off duty is they've done as much as they possibly can being on duty, understanding they have other duties. The animals picked up a few weeks back were by Terrence Napier, and he did a great job making sure they had food, water, and I kind of took it from there so that he could get back to work. But it just underscores the importance of getting those people in place so when John Alley's not here, or he's sick, or he's off, that we've got trained individuals to handle that, not private citizens. My contribution to that the last 2 times is just a drop in the bucket compared to what some individuals have been doing for years.
And is that not an outdoor kennel?
It is. They
It's not
have.
very well sheltered. I mean, it has like a glue.
That's correct. There's one indoor kennel that can be used for a single dog. The others have some storage items in them right now. The other was an outdoor, and that underscored the importance about 3 weeks ago because it was prior to the 4, 5, 6 inch snowfall that was heading this way. So we had to make sure, and that's why John came to work that day, because he knew that if those animals could not be reunited with their owners, that they would have to be taken over to Elwood because they couldn't stay in that kennel another day with the weather coming. And I take my hat off to John Alley. He works very, very hard at what he does, and we would have a bigger issue if it wasn't for John Alley.
I would make the comment to the council here that before there'd be any real estate discussed, the form I would use would be an option contract, so we can, of course, vet any potential location fully here on council as far as what your thoughts are. So rest assured that's decision to be made here. Okay. Actually, the Mayor's Youth Council, Ken, you've done a wonderful job setting things up with the Youth Council. It's actually on schedule for the 4th or the 2nd meeting of the month, but with our Youth
Also,
Council
you were there?
president here.
Yeah.
In other words, I was giving you a chance if you were put on the spot here that.
I put him on the spot.
Yeah, no, it's no problem. Yeah, as Mayor goes, so we met last Thursday, and we set up a meeting time for the first and third Thursday of every month. Last Thursday was a really productive meeting, Mayor Dozel and Ken, not Mr. Ken, were able to be in attendance, and we had some ideas as to what we wanted our first project to be, our first event. And so we began the process of planning a community 3-on-3 basketball tournament as our spring kickoff. I've got the usage forms from the high school to use the auxiliary gym as a venue, and we're going to start working with local companies to see if we can get sponsorships for additional funding or just involvement in general. And then I know we just went off and said that about the animal shelter. I think that shows a great opportunity for our community service to be to your service, I guess, and that could be a lot of unique project planning that we could do along with you, Mr. Chandler. So if there's anything, I know I'll bring it up at the next council meeting, and we can work with you directly to get something sorted for that.
Greatly appreciate that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
of course. But yeah, everything's going according to plan. I know Redoza was impressed with our council members, and just really productive group of individuals.
They were anxious to get started.
Yeah, look forward to all your input, all the board's input, and what we're doing. Yeah.
Thanks, Austin.
No problem.
Other old business, things that we're working on. I would just mention under Mayor's report that Mike and his team have been kind enough to try and clean up 136 East Jefferson. As far as the old chamber building, you may know it as, there's still a lot of stuff that was left inside of it that's now been removed, and he's fixed, we haven't had the big rains, but he fixed the guttering issues too. As far as how it drained right behind the building, so we're hoping that that's been put in place and corrected as well. Our goal is to, again, get that building back into productive business as soon as possible. I would anticipate that I would ask for that property to be transferred to the RDC at some point as far as flexibility with finding the ideal purchaser on that facility to improve it as well. So I would imagine that's probably the pattern that we use on a number of properties in the community that we look to purchase at some modest price and get back to productive use in the community. Anybody have any questions on that? Another comment I would say is this Friday I'm scheduled to go to Indianapolis for an Impact Main Street meeting. Keegan Schmicker is going to be down there, provide a presentation on some of the improvements that we'd like to do downtown here. And then the format is there's 3 other communities down there, and each community kind of critiques the other's ideas on what they're thinking about doing. So Keegan's got a presentation, and I'll bring back the results and the input from that as well. I mentioned the comment about signing an agreement, real estate donation agreement for the area that we'd like to establish as a park there off of Wilson Street. Thank Mr. Whitford again for his kind gesture there, but that kind of leads us into then our next discussion items or next action items here on the agenda as far as resolution and ordinances.
Very good, Mr. Mayor. We have resolution 2020-02 before the council. Resolution of the City of Tipton Common Council accepting interest of real property to add to its park and recreation system. Mr. Mayor, I recommend that we approve resolution 20-02.
So properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the item?
Since we don't have a tax levying park board, does the council and or mayor feel that we can maintain this park adequately?
I believe it would be an appropriate addition to our parks network. The Parks Department and the Street Department do a tremendous job of maintaining facilities in the community. There's still some decisions to be made about the drainage feature and how that design is incorporated. Of course, we want to be as responsive to the community's desire there as possible, balancing safety with the recreational opportunities there. So we're sensitive to that. I think it's a good addition. I think there's already been some light discussions about how it can be integrated into the Trails program as well.
I don't disagree. Then it would be a good thing. I just want to make sure that if we're going to add it, that Mike and Diana feel like it's something they can maintain. They've done an excellent job maintaining the 3-acre park on the north end of town by the crossing. But I don't know, does the water feature had any issues? But how large is this? 0.5 acres. Half an acre.
On the resolution.
0.54.
Yes.
Any other questions, comments? Mike?
No. I would like to respond to Mr. Train's question. There has been some discussion about what to do with the water feature as far as from a safety standpoint. Some of those discussions range from pulling the banks back to a shallower slope on the banks. There's been some discussion about whether or not we could actually bring the bottom of that water feature up to a safer level, perhaps even all the way up to grade. We're doing some form of underground retention. There are some funds that are in the surveyor's office that could be utilized to assist with whatever direction we decide to go on the water, on the drainage feature.
But at some point, either we'll have to come out of edit or the city council has to appropriate funds for adding park-like features to that.
Sure. Yeah, we currently don't have anything in our park budget for those features at that location.
And you don't feel like it would be a strain on you or Diana to,
From a maintenance standpoint, I think it would just fit in with our normal routine maintenance.
Any other comments? All those in favor of acceptance, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you. I think that'll be a nice addition to the Parks Network, when we get that plan laid out. And a good attraction, I think, for the community there as far as growing houses and people in the city as well. Thank you very much, Earl. Next item, is ordinance 2020-01, amending Appendix A, Schedule of Fees to include driveway permit fees. Mike, would you like to just make a couple comments to what our request here is?
This request pertains to our driveway permitting process when someone comes in to build a new property in the city. In the past, we have utilized a utility cut permit process, which is can be very costly for driveways, in an effort to be more conducive for growth and to kind of streamline and make the process easier to understand and easier to process. I have requested that we move to a flat rate fee for driveway permitting. We would utilize the current zoning ordinance for all the rules on the driveways, and that's what we've always utilized in the past. But the ordinance that you have in front of you is a request to allow us to accept a fee of $100 per permit for a driveway with a $50 refundable deposit. After I go out and do an inspection, everything's put in correctly, then we get that $50 deposit back. So regardless of size, shape, form, the fee for a driveway permit to install a new driveway would be $100 with $50 deposit. So that's pretty much what you have there. I guess if anybody has any questions, we have to try to answer them.
I can attest that this should have been done a while ago, honestly, because some of the people that were looking to expand in the industrial park had to ask the previous mayor for a waiver of fees because the permit for the new building was north of $1,200, and it shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be that expensive to put in a curb cut for a business or a new home.
Yeah, the old fee structure was for hard surface drive was $10 a square foot. And that would be from the edge of the street all the way back to the right of way line. Whatever square footage that is, would be $10 a square foot. And some of them added up into the thousands.
Yeah, and a lot of what the fee structure included was, there again, somebody laying utilities and things like that, the cost to restore
Absolutely.
something back to its original state.
Yeah, and I'll be in front of you again to take another look at that fee structure. But so the way we've looked at it, we've always looked at it in the past is when the utilities come in and they make cuts in the streets, cuts in the sidewalks to do their utility work, then they come back and they put it all back together and the holes sink over time, and you end up with all these patches in the streets, and it really requires a lot of effort and a lot of work from the street department, even from taking the phone calls because the pavement's sunk, to going out and fixing the pavement and all of that. So that fee of $10 a square foot is high. And the reason it's high is so that we have the money to go back and make those repairs at a later date. So, and this is just kind of a move, and coming up in the future, we're working on some design standards that will force the contractors to make a better repair so we don't have to go through that process. And then we can take a look at lowering those fees also. Yeah.
Super. Thank you for explaining that.
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a recommendation that we adopt ordinance number 2020-01.
Second. Been properly moved and seconded, and there again to remind you that this would be approval for first reading. We actually have 2 readings. I'm not a big fan of waiving those so that they're done at the same meeting. I think the public needs to be informed by the 2-meeting process. So it's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you very much. I appreciate you looking for places where we can try and help grow the line and encourage people to build homes in the community like this. Thank you for creating that new application. Next item on the agenda is claims.
Mayor, I move that we accept claims 165098 through 165188 in the amount of $3,258,880.20.
I will second that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
I will be voting on this, since I am on the funds, my company's.
Please note that Nathan's abstained from voting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, motion carried. Next item, petitions, complaints, comments, memorials, or compliments. Thought I'd add that last one on there. Has anybody got some comments?
I'll throw a compliment out to, we've got a few members of our Blue Devil boys basketball team here. We'd like to congratulate them on a season well played, and they represented our community very, very well, even though it's not the results we wanted on Saturday. Congratulations, fellas, on a fine season and representing our town so well.
Thank you. Anything else? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ken, did you second that?
No, Rick, Rick seconded everything.
Thank you very much for coming this evening. Thank you.
Yeah.